Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. Juan groaned as he rolled over in bed, his head pounding and his body aching. He'd been feeling off for a couple days, but had brushed it aside as just a minor bug. Now, though, as he struggled to open his eyes against the harsh morning light, he realized this was more than a simple cold. "Ugh, what hit me?" he muttered, his voice raspy and strained. Slowly pushing himself up to sitting, Juan ran a hand through his short dark hair, grimacing at how sweaty and gross he felt. He desperately needed a shower, but wasn't sure he had the energy to stand up yet. After a few more minutes of letting his head stop spinning, Juan managed to stagger to his feet and stumble to the bathroom. He avoided looking in the mirror, not wanting to see how awful he probably looked, and just focused on getting into the shower. The hot water helped a bit, easing some of his muscle aches, but he still felt weak and feverish. Maybe I should call in sick, Juan mused as he toweled off. He rarely missed work, always priding himself on his perfect attendance, but he really didn't feel up to dealing with clients and spreadsheets today. Decision made, he wrapped the towel around his waist and went to grab his phone from the nightstand. As he dialed his boss's number, Juan caught a glimpse of himself in the full-length mirror on his closet door. He did a double take, frowning at his reflection. Something seemed off. His face looked softer somehow, the angles less sharp. And was his hair longer? He could have sworn it had been shorter yesterday. "Hello, Juan? Is everything all right?" His boss's voice snapped him out of his confused musings. Yes, sir. Well, actually, no. I'm not feeling well today. I think I've caught some kind of flu or something. Would it be all right if I took a sick day?" Juan explained, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. He felt strangely anxious, like his skin was too tight. After getting approval to take the day off, Juan hung up and sank down onto the bed. His head was starting to pound again, and now his chest felt weirdly achy too. Deciding sleep was probably the best medicine, he crawled under the covers without bothering to get dressed. Within minutes, he was out cold. Hours passed in a feverish haze. Juan drifted in and out of consciousness, plagued by strange dreams and sensations. He felt like his body was melting and reforming, bones shifting and muscles stretching. At one point, he could have sworn he heard a woman's voice crying out in pain, only to realize it was coming from his own throat. Finally, as evening fell, Juan's fever broke. He woke feeling weak and disoriented, but the worst seemed to have passed. Gingerly, he sat up and swung his legs over the side of the bed. Something felt different. Off balance. Stumbling to his feet, Juan rushed to the bathroom mirror. The face that stared back at him was familiar, yet utterly changed. Softer jaw, fuller lips, longer lashes, and the hair that had been short yesterday now cascaded past her shoulders in dark waves. What happened to me? The voice that emerged was definitively female. Juan, if that name even still applied, staggered back, mind reeling. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of fever dream. People didn't just spontaneously change gender overnight. But as she ran her hands over her new curves, she knew this was no dream. Somehow, impossibly, she had transformed into a woman. Oh God, what do I do?" she whispered, sinking to the cold tile floor. Part of her wanted to scream, to rage against this inexplicable change, but mostly she just felt numb with shock. After what felt like hours, she managed to pull herself together enough to stand up again. She needed to think logically, figure out her next steps. First things first, she needed clothes. Her old boxers and t-shirts weren't going to cut it anymore. Hesitantly, she made her way to her closet. Most of her wardrobe was useless now, but she managed to find an old pair of sweatpants with a drawstring waist that she could cinch tight enough to stay up on her new, curvier frame. For a top, she had to settle for one of her baggier t-shirts, which now hung loosely on her smaller frame. Dressed, if you could call it that, she returned to the bathroom to examine herself more closely. Her face was undeniably feminine now, with high cheekbones and full lips. And her hair... She ran her fingers through the silky waves, marveling at how it now reached halfway down her back. "This is insane," she muttered, shaking her head. "I need help. I don't even know what I need." Her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. Food. She needed food, and then she could try to figure out what the hell to do next. In the kitchen, she found herself struggling with simple tasks. Her center of gravity was all wrong, and her smaller hands fumbled with jars and utensils. After nearly dropping a plate, she gave up on cooking and just grabbed an apple and some crackers. As she ate, she tried to process her situation. Clearly, she had contracted some kind of bizarre illness that had completely rewritten her biology. But how? And more importantly, was it permanent? She needed answers, but who could she possibly turn to? If she went to a hospital, they'd probably think she was insane. And how would she even begin to explain this to her friends or family? A thought struck her. Her ID. As far as the world was concerned, she was still Juan Martinez, 28-year-old male. But that clearly didn't match her appearance anymore. How was she supposed to function in society like this? Overwhelmed, she felt tears welling up in her eyes. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back, but it was no use. Soon she was sobbing, great heaving cries that racked her smaller frame. "Pull yourself together," she choked out after a few minutes. Crying isn't going to solve anything. Taking a deep breath, she tried to approach the problem logically. Step 1. She needed proper clothes. Her current outfit was fine for around the house, but she couldn't go out like this. And she'd need to go out eventually, if only to buy groceries. Grabbing her laptop, she hesitantly navigated to an online clothing store. She had no idea what size she was now, so she'd have to guess. After some awkward measuring with a tape measure, she settled on a few basic items: jeans, t-shirts, a couple of bras, and packs of underwear. She hesitated over dresses and skirts, not quite ready to embrace that level of femininity yet. As she was checking out, another thought struck her. Hygiene products. She was a woman now, which meant... oh God. Periods. That was going to be a whole new world of unpleasantness to navigate. Grimacing, she added pads and tampons to her order. With that taken care of, she turned her attention to her more immediate problem. Work. She was supposed to go back tomorrow, but how could she possibly show up looking like this? She'd have to call in sick again, buy herself some time to figure things out. Picking up her phone, she dialed her boss's number again, but as soon as he answered, she realized she had a new problem. Her voice. "Hello, Juan, are you there?" Her boss's gruff voice came through the speaker. Yes, sorry," she stammered, wincing at how high and feminine she sounded. "I'm still not feeling well. I think I need another day or two to recover." There was a pause on the other end. "Juan, is that you? You sound different." "Yeah, it's me," she said, trying to deepen her voice. It came out as more of a croak. "Must be the flu affecting my vocal cords or something. I should be back to normal in a few days." Her boss sounded skeptical, but agreed to give her the rest of the week off. As soon as she hung up, she groaned and buried her face in her hands. This was going to be harder than she thought. The next few days passed in a blur of confusion and adjustment. Her clothes arrived, and she spent an embarrassing amount of time figuring out how to put on a bra. She practiced walking in her new body, relearning her balance and adjusting to her changed center of gravity. She also spent hours online, searching for any information about spontaneous gender changes. Most of what she found was clearly fiction or fantasy, nothing that matched her experience. She did find some forums for transgender individuals, but their experiences of gradual transition through hormones and surgery were nothing like her overnight transformation. As the week wore on, she began to accept that this change might be permanent. The thought was terrifying, but also strangely liberating. If she was stuck like this, she might as well make the best of it. She started experimenting with makeup, following online tutorials with clumsy but improving results. She practiced styling her long hair, marveling at how different she could make herself look with just a change in hairstyle. But the biggest challenge came on Sunday morning, when she woke to a sharp cramping in her lower abdomen. At first, she was confused, then horrified as she realized what was happening. Her first period. "Oh, come on," she groaned, clutching her stomach. "Couldn't I at least have had a few more weeks to prepare for this?" Stumbling to the bathroom, she fumbled with a pad, grateful she'd had the foresight to order supplies. The next few hours were a miserable blur of cramps, mood swings, and awkward trips to the bathroom. By evening, she'd developed a newfound respect for what women went through every month. She'd always tried to be understanding when his female friends complained about their periods. But now, she truly got it. As she lay in bed that night, hot water bottle pressed to her aching abdomen, she found herself thinking about her future. She couldn't hide away forever. Sooner or later, she'd have to face the world as a woman. The thought was terrifying, but also exciting in a way she hadn't expected. For all the challenges and confusion of the past week, there had also been moments of discovery and even joy. She'd caught herself admiring her reflection, enjoying the way her new body moved and looked. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the disaster she'd initially thought. Maybe it was an opportunity for a fresh start, a chance to experience life from a whole new perspective. With that somewhat comforting thought, she drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the possibilities that lay ahead. The next morning, she woke feeling more determined. Her period had eased overnight, leaving her with just a dull ache instead of the sharp cramps. Today was the day. She was going to venture out into the world as a woman for the first time. Standing in front of her closet, she surveyed her limited wardrobe options. After some deliberation, she settled on a pair of jeans and a simple blouse. Practical, but feminine. She spent extra time on her makeup, wanting to look her best for this first outing. As she prepared to leave, she realized she had a new problem, her ID. All her documents still showed her as Juan. She'd have to be careful not to get into any situations where she might need to show identification. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of her apartment. The warm sun on her face felt good, grounding her in the reality of the moment. She decided to start small, just a quick trip to the corner store for some groceries. As she walked down the street, she was acutely aware of how different it felt to move in this new body. At the store, she tried to act casual as she picked up a few essentials. She couldn't help noticing how differently people interacted with her. The elderly man at the checkout gave her a warm smile, calling her dear, as he rang up her purchases. A group of teenage boys near the entrance fell silent as she passed, their eyes following her. It was disconcerting, but also oddly affirming. The world saw her as a woman. No question about it. As she walked home, bags in hand, she felt a small thrill of accomplishment. She'd done it, her first successful outing as a woman, but her sense of triumph was short-lived. As she approached her apartment building, she saw a familiar face coming down the steps. Mark, her next-door neighbor and drinking buddy. Her heart raced. She wasn't ready for this confrontation. "Hey there," Mark called out, giving her an appreciative once-over. "You must be new to the building. I'm Mark." She froze, unsure how to respond. Should she pretend to be someone else? Try to explain the impossible truth? She stammered, her voice coming out higher than she intended. Mark frowned, looking at her more closely. "Wait a second. Juan? Is that you?" She felt the blood drain from her face. "Mark, I can't explain." But before she could say anything more, Mark's expression hardened. "What the hell kind of sick joke is this? Are you some kind of pervert?" "No, it's not like that," she protested. But Mark was already storming off, muttering angrily under his breath. Shaken, she hurried into her apartment, locking the door behind her. She sank to the floor, groceries forgotten, as the reality of her situation truly hit her. This wasn't just about adjusting to a new body. Her entire life, all her relationships, were going to be affected by this change. As the days passed, she struggled to come to terms with her new reality. She continued to venture out, gradually becoming more comfortable in her feminine skin. But the incident with Mark haunted her, making her wary of running into anyone else she knew. She spent hours online, researching legal name changes and gender marker updates. It was a daunting process, made more complicated by the unexplainable nature of her transformation. How could she possibly prove to the authorities that she was the same person as the Juan Martinez on her birth certificate? Work was another looming issue. She couldn't keep calling in sick forever. Eventually, she'd have to face her colleagues and explain... what? That their male coworker had mysteriously turned into a woman overnight? The thought made her stomach churn with anxiety. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after her transformation, she was sitting in a small cafe, sipping a latte, and people-watching. She'd found these solo outings helpful in building her confidence as a woman in public. As she observed the other patrons, she noticed a woman about her age sitting alone at a nearby table. The woman kept glancing her way, a look of curiosity on her face. Finally, she stood up and approached. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman said with a friendly smile, "but I couldn't help noticing, are you new in town? I feel like I would have remembered seeing you around before." For a moment, she panicked. But then, seeing an opportunity, she took a deep breath and decided to take a chance. "Actually, yes, I am new here," she replied, gesturing for the woman to sit down. "I'm Julia." The name came to her spontaneously, a feminine version of Juan. "I just moved here a couple of weeks ago." The woman's face lit up. "Oh, welcome. I'm Elena. It's always nice to see new faces around here. How are you liking it so far?" And just like that, she found herself engaged in her first real conversation as a woman. Elena was warm and chatty, asking about Julia's background and offering tips about the best local shops and restaurants. As they talked, she felt herself relaxing, slipping more comfortably into her new identity. She crafted a simple backstory. She'd moved for a job opportunity, was still getting settled in. It wasn't entirely false, just creatively rearranged. By the time Elena had to leave, they'd exchanged phone numbers and made tentative plans to meet up again. As she watched Elena walk away, she felt a mix of excitement and guilt. She'd just made her first friend as a woman, but it was based on a lie. Still, the interaction had given her a glimpse of what her new life could be like. Maybe she didn't have to completely abandon her old life. Maybe she could blend the two, keeping the parts of Juan that still felt true while embracing this new chapter as Julia. Over the next few weeks, Julia, as she'd started thinking of herself, worked on building her new life. She met up with Elena a few times, gradually expanding her social circle. She found herself enjoying the easy camaraderie of female friendships in a way she never had as Juan. She also started seriously job hunting, knowing she couldn't put off rejoining the workforce much longer. Her savings were starting to dwindle, and she needed the structure and purpose of a job to feel normal again. One particularly challenging day came when she received a call from her mother. She'd been avoiding family contact, unsure how to explain her situation. But as her mother's worried voice came through the phone, asking why Juan hadn't been answering calls or texts, Julia knew she couldn't put it off any longer. "Mama," she said, her voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you. Something big has happened." There was a pause on the other end. "Juan, is that you? Your voice sounds strange." Taking a deep breath, Julia launched into an explanation. She told her mother about the mysterious illness, the transformation, her struggle to adjust. As she spoke, she could hear her mother's breathing becoming more rapid, interrupted by occasional gasps of disbelief. When she finished, there was a long silence. Julia waited, heart pounding, for her mother's reaction. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, mi hija. I don't understand how this is possible, but are you okay? Are you safe?" The concern in her mother's voice brought tears to Julia's eyes. "Yes, Mama, I'm okay. It's been hard, but I'm figuring things out." They talked for hours, Julia answering her mother's many questions as best she could. By the end of the call, her mother was insisting on coming to visit, wanting to see this change for herself and make sure her child was truly all right. As Julia hung up the phone, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Her mother's acceptance, while confused and concerned, was a huge relief. It gave her hope that maybe, just maybe, she could maintain her most important relationships despite this drastic change. The visit from her mother a week later was emotional and awkward, but ultimately healing. Seeing her child in a female body was clearly shocking for her mother, but her love and support never wavered. They spent long hours talking, crying, and even laughing as Julia shared some of the more humorous moments of her adjustment to womanhood. With her mother's support, Julia felt more confident in facing the other challenges in her life. She finally gathered the courage to reach out to her boss, explaining, in a heavily edited version, that she was transitioning and would be returning to work as Julia rather than Juan. To her surprise and relief, her boss was understanding. There were logistical hurdles to overcome, of course, HR paperwork, explaining to coworkers, updating systems, but the company was willing to work with her. It wasn't going to be easy, but at least she hadn't lost her job. As the months passed, Julia settled into her new life. She became more comfortable with her body, learning to appreciate its strengths and quirks. She expanded her wardrobe, experimenting with different styles until she found what felt authentically her. She made new friends and, with time and patience, managed to salvage some of her old friendships. Not everyone was as accepting as her mother. She lost touch with some people who couldn't wrap their heads around her change, but those who stuck by her proved to be true friends. Dating was a whole new world to navigate. At first, she was too focused on adjusting to her new life to even consider romance. But as she became more comfortable in her skin, she found herself curious about experiencing relationships from this new perspective. Her first date as a woman was with a kind, soft-spoken man named David. She was nervous, worried about saying or doing the wrong thing, but David put her at ease. They ended up having a lovely evening, talking and laughing over dinner. As months turned into a year, then 2, Julia's past as Juan began to feel like a distant memory. She still marveled sometimes at the strange twist her life had taken, but mostly she was too busy living to dwell on it. There were still challenges, of course. Explaining her lack of childhood photos as a girl, navigating medical care with her unique situation, dealing with the occasional person who knew her before. But overall, she had found a happiness and sense of self that she hadn't known was missing in her life as Juan. On the second anniversary of her transformation, Julia stood in front of her mirror, really looking at herself. Her long hair was swept up in an elegant updo, her makeup perfectly applied. She was heading out to celebrate with friends, both old and new, people who knew her story and those who only knew Julia. As she grabbed her purse and headed for the door, she felt a surge of gratitude for this strange, wonderful journey. Whatever mysterious force had changed her that day 2 years ago, she was thankful for it. It had given her the chance to truly become herself in a way she never could have imagined. As she stepped out into the warm evening air, Julia smiled, ready to embrace whatever adventures life had in store for her next.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.